Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum, good evening everyone. Alhamdulillah. Today we have with us Hanan and Hafeezah Alsagoff. They are Singapore-based writers and sisters who together make up Ukht Husni. They run the publishing company Homely Hammock, and they have been very busy and very prolific over the last few years, and we are very happy to have them with us today. Hanan and Hafeezah, welcome to Wada Books.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
So just a bit of housekeeping. This will be about an hour long. And if there are questions, I prefer the questions will be at the end. You can either unmute yourself at the end, or you can put your questions at the chat. And then we'll try to attend to them when we can. So let's start. So let's start at the beginning. Could you tell us more about yourselves and how Homely Hammock got started?
Okay, a bit about our background. Both of us actually came from a teaching background. So previously, I was an English language and English lit teacher for secondary school students. And Hanan taught English and art also secondary school level. And how we actually fell into writing was quite accidental. Like, it was not something that we purported to do, like to start Homely Hammock. So it started when I had my daughter. So my first daughter, Alia. So she was 2 years old at that time. And she knew her ABCs and her phonics really quickly. But then the Arabic letters were not as fast. So I set out to look for books to teach her the Arabic alphabet. But when I went to, the bookshops and the stores, I couldn't find any for that age group at the time. And I think the simplest Arabic alphabet book out there was the Kirati books, right? So, which is not something that kids would find appealing. Yeah, so, and I had the idea for book 1 in my head, the Arabic alphabet series. So Alif as the fisherman, and then Ba, Ta, and Ta as the boats. The fish and the boats. So I was basically talking to Hanan. I was saying, why can't I find things like this, out there where they can, introduce Arabic letters in a fun manner. So then Hanan was saying, why don't we just do it ourselves? Why don't we just write books? So it just never crossed my mind then. So I was like, what, write books, write our own books? Are you serious? He's like, yeah, we should just do it ourselves. So then, so we set out writing the entire series together. So books 1 to 7. So we continued the entire story. So that's how Homely Hammock started. Yeah.
I must say,
that was our first book that we wrote, but it wasn't the first book that we printed.
I must say that that series of alphabet books remain the most imaginative way of introducing the alphabet. So it's quite wonderful. So you started with the Huruf Island.
Yeah, we wrote that first, but we didn't print that first. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you didn't print that first?
No, we didn't, because we were scared.
Oh, yes.
It's 7 books, so to print 7 board books is very expensive, very heavy investment. So we were thinking, okay, why don't we just test the market with 1 book first, okay? But we don't want to release Alif to Tha by itself. It doesn't make sense, right? So we sat down to write another story. So that's where No One Can See Me came about. That was our first printed book. Yeah.
Right. So the first official book was Where No One Can See Me.
Yeah, and that was also inspired by Hafeezah's daughter, actually, because Where No One Can See Me was a story about a boy who eats sweets behind his mother's backs, right? Yeah, behind his mother's back. So what happened was when
okay, she's about the same age, so about 2 years.
Is she the one that kept going up and down the stairs at Wada Books? One of your daughters kept going up and down.
I have 2 daughters, so I can't remember which one kept going up and down the stairs. Yeah. So anyway, she hates eating medicine. Okay, so I basically, a lot of children don't like medicine. Yeah, so this particular day, I was going to give her medicine, and I remember putting it on the kitchen counter. But then when I was busy doing something else, then I was about to take it, it was not there anymore. And so I was like, where did the medicine go? Then my daughter, I was like, Alia, I was calling out her name, and she quickly ran to her, what do you call it, her toy, her scooter, which had a compartment where you can open and keep things inside, where the seat, yeah. And so when I called out her name, she ran to that toy and she just stood next to it. It looked so fishy. I was like, why would you do that? So then after that, when I opened up the compartment, I found the medicine there. Yeah, so she's trying to hide it.
Right.
Yeah,
So where no one can see the medicine.
Yeah.
But kids are so innocent, like they want to hide something, but they are so obvious in their
Then you move that teachable moment into something in the book, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, we want like the message to drive in that you can hide things from us, but you can't hide things from Allah. Yeah. So that's how we ventured into writing that story, and that was our first published book. Yeah.
Most of our stories are inspired by our kids, like the problems we face with them. Like, okay, how can we turn this into a teachable moment? Yeah, then we write the story.
Yeah. So this brings me to the next question. I mean, for the child's development in general and for Muslim children in particular, what do you see as the importance of children's books?
Okay, so so we have a few slides on this. Maybe you can share a screen on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so basically, this is the question, right? So why are children's books important? And we'll move on to also explain like how is it important to raise children with Muslim values, right? So I mean the basics about children's books. Okay, this is that is first of all is very important for their growth and development, especially in terms of capturing a new vocabulary, learning about intonation and speaking expressions and so on. Yeah, so basically we believe that children's books you must start reading to them aloud from infancy. You don't wait until they until you think they understand. Even they are babies and you think they're not paying attention, but they're actually absorbing. Yeah. So and also when you read aloud to them and so on, you're providing experience for them, so they have a connection with books. So it's something that's natural, and hopefully when they are older, they have a love for books, a natural love for books. Yeah. So but how does this relate to like for Muslim children, for example? Yeah, because actually books is I think for us is the easiest way to drive in a message to children. Yeah, because it's not personal. You are reading about somebody else. So when you are reading about somebody else, you can see someone else's mistakes easily and say, oh, why would this boy do that? That's such a bad action. And then but then if you were to point out to the child who does the same action, say, don't do that, that's not good, the impact is not the same. They can see the error if it's on another person, but on themselves somehow it just flies over their head.
Yeah, it's just like the Quran, right? So like when the Quran, when Allah tells stories, he highlights the mistakes of the past nations. Yeah, it's for us to reflect. Yeah,
so it's like similar to the Quran is full of stories, and we learn from the mistakes of the people in the past. So like just carry it on for little kids. So actually also we want to point out that for us, when we attend religious classes, the things that impact us most are the stories told in these classes, because stories tend to stick, right? But then if you were to say points, okay, how do you develop iman, like this and this and this and this, but there's no stories to make you kind of understand and absorb the information, you will kind of lose touch in a few weeks. But when you hear a story, it's like, oh yeah, this man did this at this time, and that I want that kind of iman, that level of iman. So the story really helps in absorbing the lesson.
And usually like when we go for these lessons, there's so many wonderful stories, and like my notebook is like filled with them. Every time like the teacher is telling a story, I'm like scribbling down all the notes. And so me and Hanan, we were saying like, these stories should be told to kids. because it's like usually oral storytelling. So as adults, we hear it a lot, but it's not available in many children's books. Yeah, stories about, you know, like the ulama and, you know, the habaibs and all that. Yeah, so we try to bring that in when we write our Asmaul Husna.
Yeah, so actually all our books, especially the Asmaul Husna series, all the stories were stories we've heard from our teachers or from books. I think even the first one, where no one can see me, when I gave you a copy, right, to read, and you immediately knew the original story, right? So yeah, we wanted children to know that story. Yeah, so that's why we write these books. Yeah, so it's an indirect way of shaping character, like you can see on the screen, and children love to pick up the same books over and over again. So repetition is good for them, and hopefully, you know, these overlap, like repeating the stories and also shaping their character at the same time. Yeah, so that was our aim in writing these stories also. Yeah.
And aside from that, right, when we talk about children's books, because you also mentioned about like why it's very important for Muslim kids, because when you look at all the books that, like when I was a kid, for example, I was exposed to a lot of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you know, the Three Little Pigs, Mother Goose rhymes. Yeah, so those were like the books I grew up with, you know. So these are like the famous children's books that come to mind, you know, when you think about books for kids. Yeah, so what we set out to do is also to have such books for children that they can easily relate to. So our latest one, the Blessed Word series, I think is it our first book, our first rhyming book?
Yeah, it was our first rhyming.
Yeah, I think it's our first rhyming book, because so we wanted like animal characters, rhyme and repetition. So it's something that little kids can parents can read to their little children, but it's stories with a plot, you know, so there's a plot as well. It's just it's not like didactic or anything like that.
Yeah, and also these stories, like for example, even our like
the Basma Bear, right?
Yeah, you can see Basma Bear down here. If any of you have not read the books or seen the books, this is Basma Bear here on the left and Hannah House on the right. Yeah, so the stories, okay, this book is called Basma Bear Loves Bismillah, and then the one with Hannah House is called Alhamdulillah Saves the Day. So even these two stories were inspired by stories we heard in classes. Yeah. So we'll share a bit about Basma Bear later on, when we have a bit of our storytelling, yeah, about where we got the inspiration from for the story. Yeah, so basically what I want to say is that I think in the past, especially when we first started off, I think 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, that the Muslim market didn't have a lot of quality children's books. They had some, I mean, it was good content and everything, but it was not targeted for the young, and it was not I don't know.
I think it's not there's no diversity, you know, like right now if I want to have like I want to expose my child to the concept of Tawheed, like where can I get a child's book on Tawheed? Then I can choose, for example, Ilyas and Duck, you know, for example, right? Or if I want to teach hadith, you know, what books can I pick? So there's a lot of different titles out there now for parents to choose from, whether they want Sirah or Arabic alphabet. You know, there's so many different categories that publishers are now aware that there is a gap in the market that they need to fill. So they are doing the work now, alhamdulillah, to fill that gap in the market.
Yeah, and also I think one of the things that have been cropping up in discussions lately in the book circles is about books on diversity. Like, yeah, so representing your own community in books. Yeah, so that's what we wanted to do with our books also. So that's why, like, for example, Asmaul Husna series, we tried to base it in Southeast Asia. Like, I think, what was it? Window Secret was based in Indonesia, in Puncak, yeah. So we want kids to feel a connection with the characters in the book. Yeah, seeing something familiar rather than, you know, all these books that we were raised on, like for example Alice in Wonderland, Roald Dahl books, you know, it's all characters from the West. Yeah, so we try to also represent characters from this side of the world.
Like for example, our own heroes, right? We have our own heroes,
Yeah.
like our prophets, for example. You know, they have like their special abilities, right? So Allah gifted them with their own superpowers. Yeah. So you know, like so these make kids excited, you know, with our own history because it's very rich.
Yeah, the children's book market is really maturing for the Islamic books. And certainly when we started out, we faced the same problem as you. There weren't really good books that I could recommend, let alone stock. So this is an important role that children's books writers like yourselves play. And in the promotion of literacy. So it's a good point that you pointed out that children need to see the ethics being played out externally. There was one writer who said that the books are like ethical workshops, and then you could see what happens, cause and effect, and all this, and then you can make judgments on it, and it's external. So yeah, it's an important point that you also bring that in for children's books. So the next thing I want to ask is, what do you see yourselves as in this thing of promoting early literacy? Because early literacy is really early, as you mentioned just now. I mean, by the time you go to primary school, it's kind of a bit too late. So you cannot wait until then. And no amount of tuition or no amount of enhancement will help your child catch up if they do not have the early childhood learning at the lap of the mother or caregiver. So what do you see your roles in that?
I think it's important, like for parents to prepare the environment, you know, so they don't. Basically, kids they do what you do, right? So you have to set that behavior for them to imitate. And also, if you want your kids to like reading, then that environment and that very rich of books that are easily available for your children to reach. And we have questions, for example, like, you know, but they don't seem to be paying attention, or, you know, they just like to bite or suck at the books. It doesn't matter. It's like I started reading. I didn't read to my daughter like very maybe quite early, but not like when I was like pregnant with her. But I remember starting with Where No One Can See Me, when she was 3 months old, which was the best because she didn't really move around a lot. So I just would put her on my lap and then put the book in front of me, and then just kept reading that book. And it's very wordy, right? Not really for like suitable for, like, people won't think it's suitable for kids who are 3 months old. Yeah, but I just kept reading Where No One Can See Me daily.
Can I jump in on that point? Because this thing about being wordy and all these things, a lot of parents have this idea that wordy text or difficult text is something that they cannot or should not expose their children to. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so basically, I feel that you should expose your kids to wordy books. Yeah, so what I do is, like, you know, I think I agree, like some parents, they tend to like pick board books, like simple ones, like this is a cat and a picture of a cat, and the next page, this is a chair, because they think it's age appropriate for that child, which probably plays a role for a different purpose. But if you want to groom your child in imagination or in vocabulary, then don't get frightened by wordy books, because the more you expose them to wordy books, the more they get used to it. It's not like something novel or rare, because they see you reading it all the time. So it's something that they get used to. And what I do with my children, this is from Hanan's tip. So I learned this from Hanan. She was telling me that you should read books that are above their reading level. So like, even when my second daughter, Alisha, she's in kindergarten, nursery, I started reading Roald Dahl to her, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And she enjoyed the bedtime stories every single night. Yeah, so I think thanks to Hanan, you're doing that to your kids. So you did experiments, right? Hanan did a lot of experiments with her kids.
You know why? Because I remember last time I walked into Wardah Books, and then you recommended me this book. Remember the Enchanted Hour?
There's a compulsory book to read
Yeah, so
for children.
I picked up this book from your suggestion, and then it was a very good read. Yeah, and then it states all the importance lah of like reading aloud. And it doesn't matter the age. You can start as young as you like, and stop as old as you like. You can even read to like elderly people. So reading aloud is a very um it has many benefits. It helps in terms of vocabulary, imagination, and also bonding. I think that's one of the most important things between parent and child. You know, um, there's another book also. Wait, let me just find it. This one. This one was also very. It was a very good book. But it's a read aloud handbook by Jim Charles, and he states all the benefits of reading aloud to little kids. Yeah. So it's not it's not the aim is not to get them to read early. I think that's where people are mistaken. They think, oh, early literacy is that, oh, you want your kids to start reading by themselves by the time they're 4. I think that's not the point. The point is to develop a love for reading so that they can fly with it when they pick up reading skills. Yeah. So for example, my daughter, my eldest one, um, I've been reading to her like very lengthy books since she was young. I think I read to her, for example, Alice in Wonderland or whatever at 5 or 6. And Alice in Wonderland is not an easy read, okay? So I have to read it aloud. Even some parts I don't understand myself, but I just continue reading. And sometimes I also wonder, like, does she have any idea what I'm reading about? But somehow they absorb. They take little things and then they see the picture and then they kind of match the ideas from the words that they hear and the few pictures that they see. Yeah. So but then the funny thing is that she was a very late reader. She started reading only at 8 years old. Yeah, but luckily she's homeschooled. If she was in public school, she would be probably considered like one of the slow learners. Yeah. But then yeah, what I'm trying to say, now she has picked up reading by herself. I think she can read the level of her peers or even beyond. I'm not too sure. So it really doesn't matter at what age your child learns to read. I think what's more important is that you develop the love of reading. Yeah. So I think that's the aim of early literacy rather than getting them to know their letters and alphabets by the time they're 3 or 4.
I think there's a solid point you just made, that because a lot of parents I know are very anxious about their child learning to read, and learning to read for themselves, because they're going to P1. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Yes, there's a serious thing, but the more important thing is, as you say, if they if their approach to reading is something that they have to do to pass an exam or something they fear, then in the long run you're doing nobody any favors. Uh, and it's also important, as you pointed out, for parents themselves to be equipped with the knowledge of not only the importance of reading to children, but also the techniques. And so actually in tandem with buying books for your child, you should also buy books for yourself, because it's so important for you yourself to be armed with all the skills and tools that you need for story time. There's a lot of things you have to do. You have to be an actor. You have to be
Yeah.
Dramatic.
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and the other point about reading difficult books, I think children feel that if you read difficult books to them, they feel that the parent is taking them seriously, that my parent or my caregiver believes this is something I can step up to. And I think that this is something very positive for them. Instead of saying your level is only the cat in the hat. So
Yeah.
they will internalize this, and whenever they come into something new or something novel, they always say, oh, I'm still at the cat in the hat level. So that's really important, because not only do we not only does the content of the stuff matters, the way we teach and the way we select the books that really makes a lot of difference. So thank you for the insight. But we need to go back to Homely Hammock. So you've done the Huruf Island, and you've spoken a little bit about Where No One Can See Me. You have many titles. Can you take us through the series of books that you are developing?
Okay, maybe I'll show some of the books here.
Or maybe you start with because we started with okay, this one. Okay, so this, if you've never seen this, this is our first written project, but not first written project. It's called the Huruf, the Arabic alphabet of Huruf Island. It's a set of 7 books. Yeah, so each book will take you through every single letter of the Arabic alphabet. Yeah, so maybe you want to just.
Okay, maybe we'll take the.
This book is out of stock though, so
Yeah.
we're in the process, inshallah, of getting reprinted. Yeah, so
okay, so like for example, this one. So this is the idea that I had in my head in the beginning. So then, so this is actualized. So we have Alif, and then the introduced as. Where is the a fisherman? So we have the story, and then introducing the sons, and with each book, then we will introduce the character with the corresponding huruf hijaya. So this style runs throughout the series, and what we do is we also not only teach them letters, but we also introduce like Islamic values, gratefulness, and also stories from the past. We try to like weave into the stories. For example, which one did we put the Kaf cave?
book 6.
Book 6. Okay. Okay. Let me show that.
Okay, so I think anyone who reads this version of the book, this is book 6. Yeah, so they Alif and his 3 sons went to visit their Anfa and Antokoff. So this is Anfa and Antokoff. And then so basically they were talking about the Kaf cave. And so we brought in the story of you know, the 7
Surah
sleepers.
Kahfi.
Yeah. The 7 sleepers in the cave with the dog. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were trying to escape an evil ruler. So they went to the cave. So these stories are infused also in our books. Yeah.
So it's not just the letters, but we try to add value to it by introducing other things as well.
And also we do a play with words, with sounds and phonics. Like for example, when we introduce a gym, we try to use the j sound a lot. Like he likes to go to the gym and he jumps. So we use the j sound for dal, because it has the sound the, right? So you thought, okay, maybe
Turning to a night.
a night, yeah. Let's go to that island. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
So we also have the finger trace book, but I can't seem to find it here, so I'm not sure where it is. Okay, but okay. So for the Asmaul Husna.
Oh wait, maybe I have to because it's linked to the cats. The other cats.
No, I don't have the cats.
Okay, no mind. All right. So we also developed a card game to go with the Arabic alphabet series. I don't know if you put the cats. Okay, never mind. So we actually had a lot of requests for people to. They were requesting. Okay, so we've already taught our kids the Arabic letters through the stories. So the next step is for them to know the Fatha, Kasra, and Dhamma, how to say A, I, U, Ba, Bi, Bu, and how to connect the letters, for example, right? Yeah. So we actually sat down and tried to brainstorm more stories to continue on that. But then it was quite tough because you know, you have so many letters, and then each letter has 3 different sounds. So then we thought, oh, how about we design a card game instead? Because actually when we were growing up,
we played lots of cards.
Yeah, we played lots of cards. We played lots of games in general. Yeah, so that's how we learned, through fun and games. So we thought, okay, let's develop an Arabic alphabet card game. Yeah, so that took, I think, about two years plus in terms of research and planning. We bought many games. We actually bought many card games from all around. We tested it with our kids. We designed, I think the card games went through about 5 different designs. Yeah. So in the end, yeah, this one was the most successful. We tested it with our kids and other people's kids as well, for them to play games and at the same time learn you know, how to pronounce a letter with a kasra, how to pronounce a letter with a fatha, and with tanween, and how to join the letters, which is the beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, so we do that through games.
So although we have our like suggested games, like I think 7 games altogether, but our customers have found their own ways of using it also. So so sometimes they come up with, because it's very flexible, you can use it any way you like to suit your needs. So that was a good
yeah, and the best thing is that it's related to our books, because the characters are still there on the cards. So when they say, hey, that is far, you know, that's Aunt Far, so they know it's far. You know?
Yeah. So for kids who are already familiar with the books, it was an easy kind of like transition. Yeah. Okay, so this is our first book, When No One Can See Me. But previously, I think it looked like this. Hold on, sorry. Okay, this was the original cover that we did. And then, so this was the next cover, the new cover. And so, like, you know, you previously mentioned, right, like, as writers, how is it important, right? So, like, when we first set out to write books, we were very green, like totally clueless about a lot of things. So we didn't really think much about the cover design. So as you can see, the cover design was very simple. Yeah. So what we did was, like, after the illustrator illustrated the book, then we were like, hey, we need a cover. We don't have a cover. And I'm like, oh, okay, what should we do? Okay, let's just plug a picture from inside the book, enlarge it, and put it on the cover. Right? So this was the picture. Right, so we just took this out, and then we kind of, like, you know, plopped it here, and like, okay, this is our book. So then Hanan and myself, so we attended the Asian Festival of Children's Content. So I think that was a real eye-opener for us, because there was a lot of writers and illustrators and a lot of workshops. And we learned a lot during that conference. And then I think one of the illustrators, right, there was a illustrator panel, you know, and then I think the whole session was about cover design and how important cover design was. And then me and I were looking at each other like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I think we learned so much. So you can see that there's an improvement in our next edition. So, like, yeah, we pay more attention to the cover this time. Yeah.
So just to carry on that line, because she was talking about the Asian Festival of Children's Content. So I just want to bring up the point that as writers, I think it's very important to continue learning. Just because we wrote a book, we think that we are qualified, but actually when you actually attend conferences and you say, oh my gosh, there's so many things we didn't know. So one important thing that we learned about children's books is that the illustrations are very important. Is 50%, you can see, like, the importance 50-50, the words and the books. And the thing is, the pictures tell a story. So when you write a children's book, you shouldn't just repeat what is on the picture, if you want the imagination to grow. So that means the picture kind of supports the words, but the words is not basically, it's not saying like this is a cat and you draw a cat, So so we learn a lot from that conference.
I think the illustrator, if you work well with the illustrator should also have a parallel narrative. So, or even more than parallel, they should go in different directions, and there's opportunity to do that. That's the other thing that is important besides literacy, is visual literacy, and it's really important in our age now. Everything is visual. They need to understand and process visual images, and because a lot of meaning is derived from visual images, especially in our current culture. So there's something you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I was very interested in that after, like, attending that conference, because the illustrator gave us a lot of examples of books that had very rich illustration, and how illustration can add layers of meaning to the story, right? So I think I went to the library just for this purpose, to show an example. Yeah, so you want to talk about it?
Okay. So this is one of the examples that the illustrator came up with, where the wild things are. I did not notice this at all until he actually pointed out. And I was like so impressed. Okay, so if you've read this book before, you'll realize that the book starts off. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, see the picture starts off quite small on the page, right? But as you progress through the story, the picture expands, and it continues expanding, and it creeps into the next page, and it continues expanding and expanding until it's still expanding. Until it reaches the point.
I'll go to the point where it gets the entire page.
Where it completely fills 3 double-sided pages. With no words. It's just the pictures talking. And thereafter, it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. I did not notice this, and I thought this is a very
clever,
a very clever point. So ever since that conference, every time we read a picture book, we try to see, where's the genius behind the illustrations. So I think one time you pointed about the invisible boy. Remember, there was one book that you found in the library where this boy was invisible.
Yeah, so I think in most of the pages where he felt invisible, he was in black and white. Then as the story progressed, and I think when he starts feeling accepted, then the illustrator added color. Yeah, so I think there's all these like aesthetic layers, right?
Yeah, and it's not stated in the words. It's not saying, when he's invisible, he's black and white. You know,
it's not stated. Yeah,
you don't write it out, but it's in the images, in the visuals of the book. So we learn a lot from that, and we try to include it in our books also, inshallah.
I'm very excited to see what you guys come up with all this inspiration and all this learning that you have. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that. Is that all of the books that you...
So When I Continue was the first, and then what's the next one? Was Window Secret.
Window Secret,
yeah. Then after that we had the Window Secret. So this one is about Allah as As-Sami. So
this is still the Asma series.
Yeah, correct. Asma series.
Maybe you can explain what is the Asma series.
Okay. So Asma series, basically, we started off with this book, right? When One Can See Me. So this one is Allah as Al-Basir, Al-Basir Al-Seeing, because we wanted to drive in the message that Allah can see you everywhere. So the story here was inspired by a famous story about, I think, a teacher and his disciples. The disciples were jealous that the teacher had a favorite. So why do you have this one particular disciple as your favorite? He set a task for them. Okay, so he gave each of them a chicken. I'm not too sure. There's different versions of the story. Okay, so one is that he gave each of them a chicken or a bird, and to slay the bird in a place where no one can see them. And so only the disciple, his favorite disciple, passed the test, because he came back not slaying the birds, because he knows that Allah is watching him everywhere. So we made that into a story. So we've heard many times in many classes and had many different versions also. So we don't know which is the correct version, but it's basically a story about Allah is As-Sami', so Allah hearing your du'as. So the inspiration was from one version is
the bread, right? The bread.
It was from Tarim. Okay, one where an auntie, she looked after her 2 nephews, and she wanted to develop a habit for them to make dua to Allah whenever they want something. So she made them make dua for bread every day, and then every day she'll place the bread on the table, and then they have food to eat. And so the association of them making dua and getting their rizq is from Allah. Yeah, so there's one time where she forgot to put the bread on the table.
She went out, right?
She went out. Yeah. And then she rushed them, and she was worried that her 2 nephews make dua for bread and there's no bread. Yeah, but when she came back, there was actually bread on the table, and she was like, "Where did you get the bread from?" And I said, "Oh, we made dua to Allah. Allah provided us the bread." Yeah. So it's also a story on yaqeen. Like if you have really strong yaqeen in your dua, inshallah you get what you want. So basically this is a story on that.
Then we have Tale of the Red Cloth.
Yeah. So this one is on Allah is Ar-Razaq. Okay, so you may lose things that you think is yours, but it's actually not yours. It's not your risk. So that's the basis of this story.
And last one is Hatim Budak.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stories based on Hatim, right?
Yeah.
So this is just one of them. Yeah. So I think we really enjoyed this story when we had it in our classes.
Yeah.
So we thought, like why not share this story
With the kids.
Yeah, with the kids as well.
Yeah.
You had another funny story, right? Something to do with
Yeah, we had a lot of stories. I write a lot more stories than what's printed. It's just that because our critics, okay, my husband's a critic.
so a lot of them don't pass the test. So
so we have a lot of written stories. There's this one story that we really liked.
Yeah, but he didn't like
Yeah, the one where it's about risk also, like
the food,
the food that was stuck in the mouth. I don't know if you've heard that story before. Like somebody ate food and then he had to travel all the way to another country in Los Angeles and then cough it out and it went to somebody else's mouth because it's that the risk of the other person. Yeah, so we wanted to make that the story. Then it's like, oh no, it's too far-fetched for little kids.
It must have been a pre-COVID story.
Yeah.
Okay, we also had this story, Key to the Garden. This is the Pillars of Faith series, but so far only just one book from the series.
Yeah. So this one is just to introduce the concept of afterlife, so heaven and hell. Yeah. So basically, the consequences of your action. You know, if you do good deeds,
you open the doors of goodness.
You open the doors of goodness. If you do bad deeds, then there's
consequences.
That one is also accompanied. Actually, we designed this game also. Just the Key to the Garden game. So
it's a very simple game.
Yeah, it's a very simple game. So actually, this game was inspired by
Minhajul Abidin.
Yeah, Minhajul Abidin, Imam Ghazali's book. I don't know if read. I mean
I'll help you do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because basically we wanted to introduce a few concepts to the children. You know, one of the afterlife. So we the gates of heaven. From you have the gate of jihad, you have the gate of iman. Okay, so there are many ways to get to Jannah, and then you can do it through good deeds. So we have good deed cards. Where is it? Yeah, for example, we have good deed cards like
here. This is fasting. We try to make the pictures cute. You know, like there's a big ice cream there, and then with the tape, do not eat, fasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like goodness to parents, Birru Walidain. And also if you do bad deeds, for example, anger, then it denies you a chance of finding the gates to Jannah.
So you can't open up the cards because the whole idea of the game is you have to collect the cards, the key to the Garden of Jannah. So the person who makes the most matches so the more good deeds you do, the more chances you have at opening the gates of Jannah.
Yeah.
Right. But then if, for example, you do a bad deed, like if you're like fighting, or you eat you eat food that's not halal. All right. So that means during your turn, you cannot have that chance to open the gates of Jannah. So you miss that opportunity. But we also have like special cards, you know, like the Tauba card. So for example, if you make Tauba, then you get rid of
all your bad deeds.
Yeah. So just to get them to understand that concept, but through play, you know, so it's not like you're telling them, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, but you know, they learn from playing.
And then we added another dimension. So this is the part that was inspired.
Hold on, this is the part I like. Sorry, let me just like. Okay, so like the number cards, right? So for example, if they pick a number card, what they do is they count out the numbers. Like for example, let's say it's just me and Hanan playing. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's me. So then I will have to make a dua for myself. Okay, so whoever the number lands on, you have to make a dua for that person to enter Jannah. Right? And how some of our readers adapt the game, sometimes they will ask the person to make whatever dua they want for that person. You know, so it's a nice way of encouraging kids to make dua for others.
Yeah. So the person you make dua for will get an opportunity to open the gates of Jannah. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say if I make a dua for Hanan, so then Hanan gets to open up the doors, the gates of Jannah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can talk about this.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Alright, so okay, this is the part. So we have two levels of the game. One is the easy game, which is good deeds and bad deeds, and counting and making dua. And then the other level of the game is that you have blessings and obstacles in your life. Okay, so this is from Minhajul Abidin. So the blessings are, for example, no, the obstacles. I'll go through the obstacles first because that's what Imam Ghazali goes through first. The obstacles to your path to Allah is like the dunya, your nafs, shaitan, and people. All right. So then each card is accompanied with its blessing. Okay, so for example, if dunya is your obstacle, right? It's money and property and whatever. Okay, so how do you control that? By having zuhud, or detachment from the things that you own. Yeah, and for example, your obstacles may be bad company. You have people trying to distract you, and then what's the blessing? Having good company. Yeah. So we designed this game so that these lessons can be subtly I don't know.
Yeah, it's like subliminal messaging.
Yeah.
For kids, like
Yeah.
the good subliminal messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we write books, but we also design games to bring across the message further lah. Yeah, and it's inspired from books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's Key to the Garden, the Pillars of Faith.
Okay, this is our latest one.
Yeah. So our latest release, which we just released in January this year, is the Blessed Word series. Okay, so
The
one is
blessed words would be like Alhamdulillah, Bismillah.
yes, yeah. Okay. So the first one here is Bismillah, and then here is Alhamdulillah. We have a few more in mind, inshallah. And these were all stories inspired by the classes we attend. So I'm sure some of you who attend classes will know this story of Basma Beg. It's inspired from a story of a person who said Bismillah all the time, and someone was irritated and did something bad. Okay, we won't tell the story. We want you to read it, and then you'll find out. And then this one is actually inspired by Ustazah Halima's book,
Bidadari Bumi.
Bidadari Bumi. Yeah. So in her book, she talked about a lady in Tarim. She was in a bus with one old lady. Yeah, and then after that, the bus suddenly jam brake, and the woman toppled over and fell head over heels, and she started bleeding. And then so Halima was shocked to see that, but she was even more shocked when the first words that came out of her mouth was Alhamdulillah. You wouldn't expect that, someone bleeding and toppling all over, over the place, and then the first words you say is Alhamdulillah. So this book is inspired from that story. Yeah. Anything else?
No, that's all.
Oh, that's all. That's all. Yeah.
This is so interesting. It's such a dynamic duo you guys are. Thank you for doing all this, and thank you for developing. And I didn't know there's so much creativity involved in what you all have done. So thank you so much. We had originally intended for there to be like a storytelling session, a short one, but do you want to do that, or you want to do a Q&A?
I think it's up to them. But
yeah, it depends on the audience.
Yeah, do you want to storytelling?
Maybe just to break the thing, there's just to address one question that is in the chat. They were talking about how you had mentioned earlier that children love repetition. Children love that adults repeat the stories again and again. How do you ensure that the adults don't get bored?
Oh, that's a tough question because I get bored. Yeah. I just have to swallow my pain and and just continue.
I think there's no way around it because it's like, yeah, you just have to try to be as enthusiastic as possible for your kids because they like the books. Yeah, but I think I've had feedback from especially our readers from Alhamdulillah Saves the Day because it's just released. They're saying, oh, my kids like the book so much, I've memorized the entire book because they read it every day. Yeah. So I think it's just
or if you read so much, I'm sure the kids have memorized it. Just ask them to read it line. You just listen, right?
Yeah, let them to complete the sentences.
Yeah, get them to complete the sentences. Yeah. Yeah, but we feel your pain. It's happened to me countless times. I had to read the book like thousands and thousands of times. And sometimes I'm guilty also. It's like, okay, how about we read something new? But I shouldn't do that, lah. Yeah.
Yeah, that comes out a lot, the repetition thing, and it's important for them, I think. We have another question about someone asking for advice on publishing themselves.
Okay, self-publishing.
No, I mean just publishing Islamic children's books, like what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
If you
So-
were to go back in time and speak to yourselves 10 years ago, what would you say?
Okay. Okay, first thing, right? Okay, not to ourselves, but generally, right? If you want to write something, you need to write about things that matter to you, you know, so that if you are passionate about a certain topic, that will translate into your writing. Okay, but as a writer, you need to be open to criticism. Because of course, when you write something, when you have an idea, you are in love with your own idea. Like, oh my God, this is so good. But then, you know, like, okay, we love the story, but then you need another person to come look at it to see whether, you know, whatever you don't see, they might pick up on. So it's very important that you have that critic or editor or anything like that, you know, to be able to tell you how to improve on the story, you know, what you can add, what you should remove, and that sort of thing. So that's in terms of the writing aspect.
Yeah.
And also don't be afraid to ask for help. So if you're not sure about certain areas of publishing, then you can ask people who know, you know, and generally you will find that people are actually quite generous with their advice. Yeah, they, most don't hold back, you know, they're willing to help.
I can attest to that because I saw the first draft of Huruf Island, and I gave a lot of feedback, and I was surprised that you guys took it so well.
Yeah, because we know that you are exposed to these books
and publishing.
Yeah, so we try to take in as much feedback as possible. There were many books that we loved. We wrote so many books that we thought was wonderful. It's like, oh, we can't wait to publish it. And then the moment we send it to like
your husband,
my husband, he's like, no, not good. I said, what? We spent so long writing it, and we thought it was excellent. I said, no. So yeah, so it's very important to have another person in the picture or a few others to give you advice. Yeah, so I don't know. I wouldn't encourage writing a book and just publishing just like that. You should go through rounds of edits. Because even when we were writing, we're both English teachers, right? So we edit our students' books all the time. But and you can go through at least like 3-4 rounds of editing, and you realize
not see it. You don't see the mistake at all until the sample copy arrives in your hand. Then you see it, right? Yeah.
And it's in place. Like, oh my gosh, why did we not like put a comma there? Or you know, this is the wrong spelling, or you know. So so you need to edit, and not once. Once is not enough. You need to edit many times. Yeah. Actually, to the garden, not to the. Yeah, was it to the garden? Oh yes, this book. When we wrote this book, we actually changed the whole story.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, we wrote the book first, and we gave it to our illustrator to illustrate. And when it came back to us, I think then we attended the AFCC conference and learned about illustration and how the words should support the pictures. And we reread our story, and we're like, oh my gosh, it was horrible. But how? We've already illustrated the book. So we literally rewrote the whole book. Yeah, we rewrote the whole book. But using the illustrations that have been done. Yeah.
We did it backwards.
No, but it's good that you guys have an understanding that what goes out to the public needs to represent the best of what you've done. So that's important. There's one question here about how do you come up with the name Ukht Husni?
Oh, okay.
I would like to know that as well.
Okay, so basically, Husni is our brother, and he has passed on. So I think he passed away at 17, right? He's passed away at 17 years old. Yeah. So and when me and Hanan first delved into writing, we wanted to be anonymous. So like we didn't want like people to know who the writers were. So we want to put our names on the books. So we wanted to come up with what do you call it? A pseudonym, is it?
A pseudonym,
Yeah, a pseudonym.
something that we share.
Yeah, and so after like thinking about this, okay, why not we just use our brother's name? Yeah, but I think the Arabic should be like
I don't know.
yeah.
It's like Sisters of Husni.
Yeah, supposed to be Sisters of Husni. Yeah, we put Ukht Husni.
Yeah.
Ukht Husni.
Mashallah, you're honoring the memory of your brother. So, mashallah, it's good to ask that question to learn that dimension of what you guys are about. So let me see what else is there. Another question about people asking about how to write for children's books. I think your story has inspired a lot of people and they want to write for their own children.
Okay.
Anything to add from what you said before?
Advice writing children's books. Okay, so I think one of the most important things is that it has to come from the heart. You have to write something that you are passionate about, or you know, there's a message that you want to drive across. Yeah, so I think it has to come from yourself, and that will provide the drive to write something of quality. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
For example, like if you have your own children, just reflect. Okay, what exactly do you want your children to learn from the stories? What would you like? So basically, when we wrote all these books, is because we want our own kids to
learn from them.
To learn from them.
Yeah, like for example, like our Blessed Word series, especially the one on gratitude. Alhamdulillah, because like, you know, kids being kids, right, they tend to complain or whine. Yeah, and so sometimes it gets was it your story about the one that you told Gadri, and then after that that was a dua book, that was a different one, the one that he kept whining the whole day. And then, you want to tell that story?
My son, I think he was having a birthday fever because everybody had birthdays around him and everybody got presents, and he's like, when is my birthday coming? I'm not getting my present. And he kept on whining. It was non-stop. He was asking for the same thing every single day. And I was like, can you stop asking me for this present? I tell you what, you go and read this book. I literally like just push this book in his face. I read this book, you know, you ask Allah, don't ask me. And then and also I gave him, in addition to this, because Allah is As-Sami, right? And this, go read this. Allah is Ar-Razak. So if it's meant for you, you'll get it. If it's not meant for you, you won't get it. And it worked. He stopped whining. I was like, yeah, Alhamdulillah. Yeah. So
yeah, remember that. You're, oh my God.
Yeah. So that's our tip.
Books can be like prescription.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Let me see what other questions. There's one question. Yeah, because in our promo for this event, we said that there'll be a sneak preview of books coming on. So there's this someone called Aisha. I don't know whether it's one of your friends.
Oh, yes. Aisha. Hi, Aisha.
She's asking if some sneak preview of what's coming up.
Okay. Okay, Aisha, I can share with you.
You have a picture, right?
Yeah. Okay. This next story that we are publishing for the Asma Husna series
is also inspired by one of our children. This one happens to be Hanan's kid.
Yeah. So he has a very
imaginative.
Yeah, his
mind.
So basically, he gets scared very easily. So our next book. Wait, I just skip through all this. How do I do this right now?
Next, right? Is the arrow?
Wait, is that Okay, I'm gonna skip through the Basma bag. This is actually supposed to be our storytelling. Hold on. Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. So this is a sneak preview of our next book. So this is just one page. It's about a boy, still Ilham, and he's freaked out by the smallest things. So
what's the asma in this?
you wanna guess?
It's not a common
Right.
one that people readily, come up with.
I have no idea.
Okay.
You can leave it a secret. You don't have to
Yeah,
tell.
maybe we'll leave it secret for now. But basically, it's a story to show Allah's. I'll give you a clue to show that Allah is
In control.
in control of everything. Yeah.
Al-Qadir.
Sorry.
Al-Qadir.
Abdul Qadir. Yeah. You know, you're right. You're right. It's based on him. Okay.
Okay. Last chance for anyone to ask any questions.
Okay.
Do you any plans for anything? Yeah. So you guys have done games and you've done tracing letters. Now Shaima Al-Kaf is asking whether animation is on the cards.
We've always wanted animation.
Yeah, we've
so-
always wanted animation.
Yeah.
Like we hope like our Arabic alphabet series can be animated, but I think the process to get there is quite it's not straightforward. Yeah, so inshallah, if we have risk, that can happen one day, inshallah.
Yeah, you never know because content is king. So a lot of people are looking for content. A lot of people are looking for genuine and beneficial content. So you never know. You might get a call from somebody in order to syndicate.
Please make it up for us.
So we come to the close. So I'm just wondering if you have any closing ideas or remarks or thoughts you want to finish with.
Really bad last words.
Sorry to put you on the spot. But yeah, we are really happy to have you guys here. And I think we all have like a better appreciation and understanding and respect for the work and dedication of children's writers like yourselves. There's really a lot of work that goes into it. And we need to show our support and especially since you're Singapore writers, Singaporeans need to support their own local talent because what you do is speaks to our own community and our community should embrace it. So inshallah, all of Homely Hammock's titles are available at Water Books, so you can show your support.
Yes, please do buy from Water Book.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And for those who joined us late, we'll be putting this up on YouTube in a couple of days. The link will be up on our blog and in our email newsletter. So Hanan and Hafeezah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you for having us.
Alhamdulillah.